Well, hello everybody. I hope everyone is doing well this morning. Have you ever experienced being abandoned by your family and your community? Or perhaps the term disfellowshipping was used, or shunning, or being excommunicated from an organization that you had been faithful to for years? Well, this is my story. It began around 1989. I was 32 years old. And I was reflecting at that time in my life, I was reflecting on how I had been living my life for the previous years, being married to a prominent member of a church, and I found that it wasn't fulfilling the needs of me as a woman and as a mother. So I started to analyze my situation and realized that I need to make a move. So I had spoken to my husband, and we had grown apart in some drastic ways. And I didn't want my children to feel like they were trapped into a lifestyle that didn't permit them to further their education or grow as people. So the word divorce came up. Now, most people, if they're going through a divorce, are able to speak to their family members, say a mom or a dad or a close friend. But I found myself, when I approached the subject with the people that were closest to me, that they were pretty much taking the side of my husband, because he was a prominent member of the church, as I said, and they didn't want to go against their Christian principles. So I found myself without any support on the subject. I was just told that I needed to be a submissive wife and things would work out in time. However, this just didn't sit right with me. So I ended up getting a rental apartment and moving myself and my two children into a low-income housing that was small. It was a small complex in the area, and it was very welcoming and inviting. Oh, excuse my dogs. So, hush, hush, hush. So at the point that I signed the lease, and the church became aware that I was moving out away from my husband, an announcement was made at the church that due to my actions that were unbecoming of a Christian, I was going to be shunned, disfellowshipped, or no longer a part of the church, excommunicated. So within 24 hours, my family, my mom, my brother, my aunts and uncles, everybody that was close to me, friends, they were no longer allowed to speak to me. I became what they considered to be bad association. And in this happening, it also fell onto the shoulders of my children, which was very, very sad. Because I found out over time, within just a month or two, that their dad also was losing interest in staying in contact with them. I'm not going to speak badly of their father. He was standing by his beliefs. My family also was standing by their beliefs. But it left me in a very alone place without any emotional support, not knowing what to do, as far as my life from that point forward. What was it going to look like? And I found out that what it looked like was there were no family, no friends, no anything to give me any kind of support. So in this all happened around 1989. I was right around 32 years old. I had never had a job. I was a housewife at that point. I had a 9th grade education, and how in the world was I going to take care of my 2 children with that lack of experience to fall back on? So this is a story from my point of view. It's not meant to bring any negativity to any of the members of my family. It's just, like I said, I'm finding my voice, and after all these years, I'm able to speak about it without a lot of hurt or without a lot of anger. I can just pretty much be factual with y'all. So I had a friend that was not part of this organization. It was just somebody in the neighborhood heard what I was going through, and they offered me a job as a receptionist at a company. And it was making a low income, but because I was in the subsidized apartment, I was able to handle things. Now, when I left with my clothes, my children, their clothes, and a truck that was paid off. That's the only way I could afford to go. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I didn't know was that there was education available to me. I didn't know that there was therapy available to me. I didn't know that there was financial assistance available other than the subsidized apartment. And I had to learn these things through time. It was like I was taken completely out of my world and out of my belief system, and I entered into a foreign land that I had to learn, and I had to deprogram my thinking, and I had to watch what other people were doing in order to know how to proceed. I'm trying not to go down any rabbit holes that are negative towards my family. This is kind of hard to do, but I have found forgiveness. I have had many years of a good life, and I don't want to discredit anybody. All that I was left with was prayer. And so I did. I started praying every day and asking for guidance and wisdom as to how to handle this situation. Now, what happened in the next 2 years was we filed for divorce, and in a very big surprise and shock, my husband was battling for custody of my children, and that lasted for 2 solid years. Thankfully, I was able to win that battle, because I was convinced in my heart that I was the parent who had the children's best interest at heart, and I was the one that was able to provide emotional support to them. So as time went on, I fell into depression, and I had to realize that therapy was in order, which I found through an organization called Safe Harbor. They provided free therapy for people who found they had been in an abusive situation. And I wouldn't say that my marriage to my husband was abusive, although for me, it lacked a whole lot of emotional support. There just pretty much wasn't any. I was to be a wife and a mother, and that was my role. But my inner self always said, that something wasn't right. And so I went to find what was right. Well, where do I go from here? Being abandoned by your family and your friends, your community, it leaves you shaken to the core. It makes you question yourself. It makes you question your self-worth. Has anybody out there been in the same similar situation? If you have, you've picked up on the cues that I have said about being in an organization that has shunned you or disfellowshipped you or excommunicated you. You'll know what I'm talking about, and I would love to hear your comments. I would like to share with you the pain that you have experienced in deprogramming yourself and coming out on the other side successful. So please like this video if you find any meaning in it. I do want to say that my life from my divorce point forward, I had to move many times. I had to move my children many times, although I was determined to keep them in the same school system. So the moves that I made always revolved around my children and trying to keep them safe and trying to keep them in the same area. I also was determined to not move them away from their father. I wanted to provide the opportunity to him that if he wanted to stay in contact with his children, it was going to be easy for him. Now, also, I found myself bouncing from job to job for a few years. My whole life had been just in tatters emotionally. I didn't know how to focus, and when an obstacle came up, I would kind of jump to something else. I didn't have a focus. It was just a day, excuse me. It was just a daily struggle of trying to keep my children safe. However, in 1999, no. My house was built in 1999. In 2007, when both of my children were out of the house, they had grown and gone their independent ways. I was able to buy my first house by myself. I had learned enough at that point in time how to manage my finances and how to accomplish the fact that I could purchase my own home. And that's where I became stable. That's where I became relaxed. That's where I understood that I was an independent thinker. I was being successful, and in time I had healed over the fact that my entire family, friends, community had abandoned me. And that's where I found forgiveness, because now I had a place to stay that offered peace and security and comfort. And I was able to maintain jobs and keep my budget in check so that, yes, I now had a secure place to live. And as I said, I had been going to therapy, and over time I was healing and deprogramming from the teachings of this particular organization. What I found was I had to forgive my family for refusing to speak to me, because I would reach out occasionally and try to let them know how the kids were, try to let them know how I was doing, and try to make contact again with them. However, when they heard my voice on the phone, I was told in a very blunt manner that they were not supposed to be speaking with me, and they would hang up. So, as you can imagine, this was just devastating to me. And what were the effects of that? Well, I never really realized what marriage was all about. So I had to do some deep diving into that. I never trusted anybody again on an individual basis, because I felt that by laying my heart out on the line, that it would just be broken again because they were going to leave. And unfortunately, this is still a nagging thought that stays in the back of my mind. It's hard for me to trust people. And I surrounded myself with my children, and I now have grandchildren that are grown, and I also have been blessed with great-grandchildren. And over the years, this has been my family, this has been my community, they have been my friends. Now, I don't want this to be a negative experience in sharing this with you. I would like to tell you that if you find yourself in a similar situation that there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's a painful tunnel to have to go through emotionally. But what I have found is that I am a very strong individual. I don't let people push me into thinking certain ways. I take their opinions and their thoughts and I weigh them out for my own self-belief system, and I come to a decision of whether or not I want to accept that thought or whether it's not something that I want to base my life on. So as a woman who's pretty much been living in just above the poverty level and having 2 children to raise, I have discovered that I have created, now that I'm 68 years old and I can look back on my life, I created the best life that I could possibly create for my 2 children and for myself. Were there mistakes? There were many. Were my children hurt at different times in their life? Yes, they were. Was I hurt at different times in my life? Yes, I was. But everybody experiences something, right? Right? We all, if we live long enough, we've experienced some negative happening in our lives. So I would like to invite you to please leave a comment, and perhaps we can get into a conversation. Perhaps I can help you. I can suggest things that are possible for you to do to maintain your sanity. I would like to hear from people who have experienced the same exact thing at different ages in their lives, or how it affected their children, or how you came out on top. So this is my story. Some of my family were not part of this religious organization. All they knew was that Robin stopped making any kind of contact at all. And I think the blame was pretty much placed on my shoulders, because that was an easy thing for other people to do. That if Robin hadn't acted this way, or she hadn't divorced her husband, who was a prominent member of church, in their eyes, not mine, in their eyes, I was unchristian and I was no longer fit to be a part of that. But I do have family, aunts and uncles that are not part of that. I have cousins that are not part of that organization, but it seemed to trickle through the whole entire family, and I'm not sure why, but every once in a while, I have 2 girl cousins that we contact each other on Facebook, and we're not close, but I can kind of see what's going on with them, and they can kind of see what's going on with me. But I think I've gone down a rabbit hole. Anyway, I want to assure you that I am fine. I'm stronger for it. I know what I stand for. I do hold a Christian belief. I do not attend any more church organization services. However, I am very spiritually minded, and this has not ever, ever made a difference between my relationship with uh, the Lord and Jesus, that I pray every day, and my children and I still, hold on to the spiritual aspect of things. So if you've listened this long, thank you for listening. It's not a happy story, but I felt it was one that needed to be told. I have since, as I said, I established a community and a family with my children and my grandchildren, their wives, their husbands. And so I do, at this point in time, I have adult people that I can talk to and confide in. And so far, nobody's broke my heart. So, so please, as I said, if you're new to the channel, I want to welcome you. I would like to encourage you to subscribe. If you get any value out of this video, please like it and leave a comment. And until the next video, I hope you have a great day. Thank you.